All right, welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, the 19th Tuesday of the year, and World Cocktail Day, which is not really ideal for most people to celebrate on a Tuesday, but it is the 13th. So some people may need a cocktail even though it's not Friday the 13th. It's also National Apple Pie Day, a dessert that has become synonymous with all things America, right? But apple pie dates back several centuries to England and the Netherlands. If you love it, now you have an excuse to eat a slice tonight. Well, surprise, surprise. Today's inflation report in the form of the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, which I mentioned yesterday, was lower than expected. This morning's report showed goods and services rose 0.2% in April, less than the 2.4% analysts had predicted. So inflation is moving lower. Yes, still up, but it's coming down incrementally. Gas prices are way down. Eggs are still expensive, but way down. And yet people like Elizabeth Warren and shifty Adam Schiff, who never said anything about inflation for 4 years of record high inflation, are tweeting every day about how Trump is killing the economy. And yes, the price of some automobiles are going up, not only because of tariffs, but also because Ford, General Motors, and others lost billions of dollars on the Biden administration's EV initiative. But nobody ever mentions that. All right, President Trump arrived in Saudi Arabia this morning. That, obviously, is the big news, the major headline, the first official international trip of his second term. Saudi Arabia was also the first country he visited in his first term. Air Force One and the president arriving to the usual pomp and circumstance of a world leader's visit. He was met on the tarmac in Riyadh by the Crown Prince and other Saudi officials.
It's an honor to be you, my friend, and we've had a tremendous relationship over the years. It's now a long time.
The president and the Crown Prince talking today about dismantling Iran's nuclear program, ending the war in Gaza, keeping oil prices in check, and Saudi investments in the United States. If you remember, when Trump took office in January, Saudi Arabia committed to investing $600 billion. That's what I said, $600 billion in the United States over the next 4 years. So Trump wants to ensure, I don't know if I should say above everything else, but amongst everything else, that the United States is going to get that money.
As you know, we have the biggest business leaders in the world here, and they're going to walk away with a lot of checks for a lot of things that you're going to provide. And in the United States, it's probably 2 million jobs that we're talking about.
Tomorrow, there's a huge investment summit happening in Saudi Arabia, featuring the CEOs of NVIDIA, Citigroup, BlackRock, and several other companies. This is former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on the record with Greta Van Susteren.
Going to Saudi Arabia, landing there, that's the same place he went 8 years ago. And 8 years ago, it was an arms deal. And he picked that country. Most presidents before him picked, Canada or Mexico or UK. Why do you think he picked Saudi Arabia again this time?
Because this is why I think it's so important. You know what's happening in the Middle East? I believe what will transpire is the Abraham Accords, something that was tremendous what he did in his first term that they should have got the Nobel Peace Prize for. Saudi Arabia never signed on to it. And it's because Biden backed away from it. And I believe had Saudi Arabia signed on to it, October 7th never would have happened. I think you were going to get that deal. It's also important to have their support in dealing with Russia. It only makes us stronger.
And Iran.
Exactly. Well, look what he's doing about changing the name. It is just that subtle strength, and it shows America's strength. It shows the leader who's not afraid to lead. I mean, think about this. Most people would say, don't get in the middle of the Ukraine-Russia war. You can't put it out. He sheerly is just willing an end to it. And he's putting a lot of risk into doing that.
I would have expected the Abraham Accords would be the mission here, and they would expand it. But for one thing, it said after October 7th, and as time marched on, is Saudi Arabia said that there would only be, there's no talk about anything like Abraham Accords if unless there's two-state solution, something that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, opposes. So I don't know how Saudi Arabia changes its mind on that or backs.
Well, I think the difference is when they said that, you didn't have President Trump as president at that time. It is a different Middle East. It is a different opportunity. You now have a weakness of Iran. Because remember, when President Trump left, Iran was only able to produce 400,000 barrels. And under Biden, they went up to 3 million a day. And they used that money supporting the Houthis and everybody else. But what's happened to the Houthis? The Houthis have now said, we'll stop the battle as well. That's the difference, walking into strength in the Middle East to calm it down.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, very complimentary of the president, who will be heading to Qatar next, which has become a major talking point, right? A political football, if you will, after offering to replace the aging Air Force One with a $400 million super luxury jet for free. There's massive debate on both sides of the aisle about this. Greg Kelly had a great segment on his show last night.
Air Force One that could be replaced pretty soon, just like Kanye recommended. Kanye West, yes, in the Oval Office, actually.
The I-Plane 1. It's a hydrogen-powered airplane, and this is what our president should be flying in. Look at this jerk.
Let's get rid of Air Force One. Can we get rid of Air Force One? No, you don't like that.
Well, this is our president. He has to be the freshest, the flyest planes.
It's true. And right now, the United States does not have the freshest, flyest plane. Air Force One is old and broken down. Well, it's very well maintained. You heard about this, right? Qatar is offering us, America, a great big jumbo jet. Actually, the latest and greatest version, a 747-8. And the plan is, once the legalities and all the I's and T's and all that stuff, this will serve as the new Air Force One. And apparently it's free, and President Trump's going to take it, and I think that's a great idea.
There was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear of him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto: when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. And then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
All right, Sam Snead. We looked him up and he said words to that effect. A famous golfer: keep close count of your nickels and dimes, stay away from whiskey, and never concede a putt. Sam Snead, words to live by. All right, so we're going to take this beautiful, state-of-the-art, very new airplane, because Air Force One, there's a lot of propaganda kind of around Air Force One. It's not all that.
It carries no weapons, yet it's the most powerful aircraft in the world. This 747-200B grew into a flying machine of unparalleled capability. Boeing also added some equipment normally reserved for combat planes, like ECM, or electronic countermeasures, that jam enemy radar and alert the crew to surface-to-air missiles, and dispensers that eject flares to confuse and divert heat-seeking weapons. One airplane.
Okay, it ends right there. It's too old.
So Greg goes on to talk about the history of Air Force One, how the Model 200 goes back to the early 70s. The current Air Force One, the one that's in Saudi Arabia right now, first flew with George H.W. Bush in 1990. And then he gets into the politics of the situation.
Here comes Qatar to the rescue. Now, Qatar is not a bad place, and they're not bad people. I mean, yes, every country has bad people. Every government has some corruption. But did you know that we have an American air base right in the middle of that country? They are a strong ally of America. And I know they're full of all kinds of people we don't like, but tell that to the presidents. Clinton was quite tight with the Emir of Qatar. George W. Bush, very tight with the Emir of Qatar. Barack Obama and the Emir of Qatar. President Trump and the Emir of Qatar. Joe Biden and the Emir of Qatar. If they want to give us a new jet, I say fantastic. Look, we're already kind of totally in bed with them with the air base and the rest of the military alliance. May I see the new jet again, if you don't mind? It is a 747-8. We'll have to modify it and obviously give it a paint job. I do know some of my conservative friends are very uncomfortable with this, but you know what? We don't know anything about buying or selling airplanes. We don't. I've never traded one in. Have you? Nobody has. 4 people in the country know what this is like, and President Trump is one of them. The guy's been wheeling and dealing in the airplane business off and on since 1982. He knows what he's talking about. So this new jet, once we get it, and it looks like the Department of Defense will take possession of it, the brand new jet, it's going to ultimately go to the library. There's going to be a Trump library. You know, the Reagan library, nobody raised a fuss about his taking possession of Air Force One, little dinky 707, actually. It is a great deal for America. This kind of stuff happens, and I think it's great. And, well, I guess we'll stay tuned. I hear there's going to be a congressional inquiry, and some people are perturbed.
Greg Kelly reports, 9 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. He always has a unique, different kind of perspective. Check it out tonight. Edan Alexander, the last living American hostage held by Hamas, was reunited with his family last night at a hospital in Tel Aviv after 584 days in captivity. He was seen on social media holding a handwritten sign thanking President Trump for his release. He is a dual Israeli-American national who had been taken hostage by Hamas in the October 7th concert attack in Israel while serving in the Israeli army. Newsmax correspondent Zach Anders brought it to us live from Israel as the exchange unfolded yesterday.
Now, it looks like those Red Cross vehicles, as we speak, are still making their way to that IDF exchange position that I believe is going to be taking place inside Gaza. And then the IDF is going to very quickly, with a specialist commando unit, escort Edan out of Gaza to a holdover facility where that helicopter is waiting and those rotors are still spinning, waiting to get him out of there as quick as he can. Maybe very more importantly to Edan, and more importantly to all involved in his family, that is where his mom and his dad is currently waiting. They are on the Israeli side. They are Reem IDF base in the south, just across the border fence with Gaza. So that's the first chance where he'll get to meet both of his parents again for the first time in 584 days of captivity. But again, the good news here, guys, it looks like the Red Cross, at the very least, the Red Cross has him now. Hamas has relinquished him from captivity, and he is on his way home, and we can already start to feel the buzz here on the streets of Tel Aviv as Israel is celebrating the return of one of their sons. Again, 21-year-old American-Israeli hostage Edan Alexander appears to be on his way back into Israeli hands. The IDF, from what I'm getting now, is waiting to receive him, but the Red Cross has him now, and he is no longer held by Hamas. Guys.
Newsmax correspondent Zach Anders in Tel Aviv. Hamas said it released the 21-year-old Edan Alexander as a goodwill gesture toward the Trump administration in hopes of reviving talks on ending the war, which is one of the topics, as I mentioned, that President Trump is discussing with the Saudi Crown Prince. If you missed Rob Schmitt last night, HHS Secretary Kennedy was on to talk about the president's executive order to lower the cost of certain prescription drugs.
The number one cause of bankruptcy in this country today is healthcare.
Yeah.
So, when people's lives are completely shattered and broken by it, and that is that pain that is financing the cheap drugs in Europe. So President Trump, and by the way, Bernie Sanders, for years, has said this is what he wants to do. He's been trying to get the Democratic Party to do it. The Democrats haven't been able to do it. The Republicans haven't been able to do it because the power of the pharmaceutical industry. There are more lobbyists from pharma on Capitol Hill than there are senators and congressmen combined.
You said like 3 to 1 today, didn't you?
It puts 3 times as much into lobbying as the next largest lobbying industry. It's not really the pharmaceutical industry fault. It's the European nations who are price fixing.
Yeah.
And taking advantage of us, and so we are now going to fix that.
Yeah, I mean, Trump said today that the Europeans essentially threatened to block medications from entering their markets unless they can get it at the price that they want, which is insane. I mean, I don't understand how they pull that off, because without those medications, their people are sick. But he says that's what's happening. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, the Europeans have a different approach to healthcare than we do. It's socialized medicine.
Yeah.
Part of the cost, and there's advantages to that, but there's a lot of disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is there's a lot of drugs that are just unavailable in Europe. And you have a lot of medical tourism to the United States because people can get drugs here that just aren't available in Europe. You're going to pay a lot more, but the drugs are here. And in Europe, they restrict them so they can say to the drug company, we're not going to allow you to sell that drug in our country unless you give us basically the cost of manufacturing it.
Yeah.
And those are the bargains that they drive, and it's really a form of price fixing. And crazy. We are subsidizing socialized medicine in Europe on the backs of the American citizens who are going bankrupt to pay these costs.
I guess the question is this going to stick? I mean, Trump said if the EU tries to get cute, he said, and subvert this in some way, that he's going to drop the hammer on them. Are you guys going to be able to, this executive order, you think this will stick and we'll see the results of this?
Well, I think it will stick, Rob, and the reason I think it'll stick is because I think the pharmaceutical companies know that it's time, and we've been meeting with them, and, this was not a surprise to them. I had meetings with most of the CEOs last week, and I gave them at least a veiled warning that this was coming, but they knew it was coming. Yeah. And one of the things that they really want is to get rid of the middlemen, to get rid of the pharmaceutical benefit managers, the PBMs, who collect a lot of the money and don't produce anything. They're supposed to bargain, for better prices, but there's all kinds of ways that they can make money on it. And it's been a thorn in the side or a stone in the shoe of the pharmaceutical companies for years. Yeah. And one of the things that we did with this executive order is to eliminate the PBMs in these transactions. So I think that's something that's a carrot for the pharmaceutical companies. And then there's a stick too, which is we have ways of enforcing this if we can't come to an agreement.
Robert Kennedy Jr., who had been meeting with Big Pharma on Rob Schmitt Tonight. Unless you work in the pharmaceutical industry, maybe the medical industry, in a hospital billing department or something, you wouldn't know anything about PBMs, the pharmaceutical benefit managers, who, according to Kennedy and the pharmaceutical companies, have been helping drive up the prices. So that's something the administration is eliminating. Rob also spoke with acting ICE Director Todd Lyons about what's been going on at that ICE facility in New Jersey. New Jersey's the focus of a lot of bad things right now. The ICE facility is in Newark, same place the airport with all the troubles is.
All right, Todd Lyons is the acting ICE director and joins us now. Sir, good to see you. I guess I want to start here. After what we saw in Newark on Friday, do you believe that charges are coming for the members of Congress, especially the ones who physically assaulted ICE officers? They stormed a federal government facility. They refused to leave. Are charges coming?
So I'll leave that to Department of Justice to answer. They're working on that case. They're great partners. But first off, thanks for having me on, because I really like to address this. What we saw on Friday and over the weekend through protests and things like that, really, there's no excuse for that. That could have been handled a lot better way. Yeah. We totally believe that Congress has the right to have the oversight. But they could have done it a better way. That was just a political stunt all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a distorted thing. And again, we're seeing three very, meager members of Congress that most people haven't heard of. They want to escalate their relevance. They want to make a name for themselves. They want to do it in this manner. I think we're going to see a lot more of this kind of, showmanship and just grandstanding. I think we're going to see a lot of that. But talk about how bad the people that are being held in the Newark facility are, just to show how ridiculous these members are and the mayor of Newark are.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's a great question. I appreciate you bringing that up, because really these are the worst of the worst, right? This is what this administration has set out with from the beginning, is to make sure that we're getting these criminal aliens, these public safety threats out of our neighborhoods. 75% of the 152 detainees that are at Delaney Hall have criminal convictions or pending criminal charges. So there are people in there right now that have been charged with murder, fentanyl distribution, child pornography, wire fraud. They're members of TDA, members of MS-13. So these are the people that you don't want in your neighborhood. And these are the people who the men and women of ICE, officers and agents, are out in the communities every day putting their lives on the line to take these public safety threats off the street. And it's disheartening when these elected officials are, championing criminal aliens. Yeah, it goes against everything.
They're so embarrassing. It was such a spectacle to behold.
Murder, child pornography, fentanyl distribution. These are the people some Democrats are fighting law enforcement officers to protect. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Officers, ICE, is a law enforcement agency, part of the Department of Homeland Security. Oh, and by the way, all the people twisted up about the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem getting an honorary degree, and the students at Virginia Commonwealth University, a school that I almost went to, by the way, walking out on Governor Youngkin's speech. I mean, he also spoke at Liberty University, where he was cheered. You didn't see people walking out there. But all of you, get over it. Everything, everywhere that involves any politician, mostly a Republican and lefties, sparks controversy, right? That's the catchphrase on all the headlines. Kristi Noem's honorary degree sparks controversy. Youngkin's speech sparks controversy. I'm so tired of it. Get over it. For more on the ICE Detention Center spectacle, as Rob said, this is Chris Salcedo, host of The Chris Salcedo Show.
In a video released by the Department of Homeland Security, Democrat politicians can be seen strong-arming their way into an ICE detention facility. Now, by my reading of the law, folks, this is illegal. 18 U.S. Code 111 states, quote, whoever forcibly assaults, resists, opposes, impedes, intimidates, or interferes with any person designated in Section 1114 of this title while engaged in or on account of the performance of official duties shall, where the acts in violation of this section constitute only simple assault, be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And where such acts involve physical contact with the victim of that assault or the intent to commit another felony, be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 8 years or both, end quote. I'm going to show the video again. Look at this video again. Democrat lawmakers can clearly be seen making harsh physical contact with federal agents as the Democrats stormed ICE's Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey. Democrats were trying to get access to alleged killers, MS-13 gang members, child rapists, and more inside that facility. I, as your liberty-loving Latino, unlike certain Republicans in the America Last coalition, think that the laws should be equally applied, even to Democrats. It's why fake Republicans and I come into conflict so often. They also disagree with me over at CBS Fake News. Notice how they brazenly suggest that Democrats shouldn't be arrested, not even putting a caveat on their question if a Democrat breaks the law. And also notice how in this clip, CBS Fake News won't show their audience the video I just showed you twice.
Over the weekend, we saw Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrest the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, outside a federal detention center. And they're now threatening to arrest 3 Democratic members of Congress for allegedly assaulting or touching an ICE agent there on the scene. I'm just curious, should ICE be arresting or even threatening to arrest members of Congress?
I mean, that's obviously a very drastic move. I would only do that if they were complicit with a crime.
That's just one of the reasons why CBS and other fake news operations cannot be trusted, folks. Not only do they refuse to show their audiences the truth of what happened so their uninformed audiences can make up their own mind. As you just heard, CBS fake news suggests that Congress is somehow above the law with a question, quote, should ICE be arresting or even threatening to arrest members of Congress, end quote? Real Americans would answer, yes. Yes, if those members of Congress broke the law, real Americans say they should be arrested. I mean, that's the mantra we heard from left-wing kooks when they weaponized the law against their political opponents, right?
No one is above the law.
No one above the law.
Does uphold the basic notion that nobody's above the law.
A test of the principle that no one is above the law, that the law applies equally to everyone.
First, let me be clear. No one is above the law.
The president must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
No one is above the law, except Democrats. Just ask America Last Republicans and the fake news press. Is Tom Tillis and his pals in the Democrat Party looking out for our people when they try to normalize using our justice system to settle political scores? No. Is John Cornyn and his Democrat pals, are they looking out for our people when he and other America Last Republicans vote with Democrats to stop funding for, let's say, a border wall? No. Are Democrats in the America Last coalition looking out for our people when they will even commit crimes in order to keep criminal illegal alien felons in America? 100% no.
If you're one of the many new viewers to Newsmax or a new listener of the Newsmax Daily podcast, that is Chris Salcedo, host of the Chris Salcedo Show, weekdays, 4 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. As Congress continues hashing out the makings of the one big beautiful bill back in Washington, keep in mind, so far, Congress has sent 5 bills to President Trump's desk to sign in what, 120 days? 5. That's the least of any president since the 1950s. Let's get it together. On Wall Street, stocks opened mixed, with the Dow slightly lower, the NASDAQ higher after yesterday's huge rally. And again, the good inflation news this morning. Crypto firm Coinbase, stock symbol COIN, which trades on the NASDAQ exchange, is going to be moving into the S&P 500. It's a big deal. They're replacing Discover Financial Services, which is being acquired by Capital One. Cryptocurrencies are higher this morning. At the time of recording, Bitcoin was up about $2,000 at $103,650 and change. All right, be sure to keep up with all of today's historic and unprecedented news on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. Make sure you have the Newsmax app on your phone as well so you can stay up to date anywhere, anytime. The news starts each and every morning, as you know, with Wake Up America, followed by National Report, Newsline with Bianca De La Garza, American Agenda, Carl Higbee, Greta Van Susteren, Chris Salcedo, Rob Schmitt, Finnerty, who is back from Rome, and so much more. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of your day. Maybe have a cocktail or a slice of apple pie or both. At least you have an excuse. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.